perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. The court is going to sentence you to life.
Even my attorneys told me, like, you need to show a little more emotion.
What are some of the most revealing and eerie things that Chris Watts said in the police interviews? How did he himself point to his guilt? How did he confess before he confessed? What are some of the most important signs of deception that investigators and we all should be aware of? Let's find out. If you like this kind of video, click the like button and subscribe for more videos. What do you think about the clips we're about to see? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to the channel.
I can tell that there's just something you're not telling me. And I'm not sure what it is. I just don't believe some of the things you're telling me. Okay, I just don't. I simply do not believe you. So can we talk about two Chris's? Okay. Two Chris's. The tale of two Chris's? Okay. And you need to help me know which Chris I'm looking at today and which Chris you really are. So
the reason for bringing up the idea of two Chris's is that it allows the subject to speak as the quote-unquote other person. Psychologically, this makes it easier for the subject to admit what they did because they can blame the other person for their actions. The fact that Watts doesn't object but is willing to talk about himself as two different persons is revealing. It suggests that he agrees with the agent, Decoder, that he hasn't told the truth or the whole truth. In the following, Decoder continues to give Watts excuses he can use to make it easier for him to confess.
Chris number one is right here, right? Fell out of love with his wife, is looking at a bachelor pad in Brighton, did something terrible to his wife and kids. That's not the Chris you're looking at right now. No.
The first presupposition in Watts' denial is that there are in fact two Chris's. The second presupposition is that there are or could be times when he's the other Chris, because he introduces the restriction right now. His denial is weakened by the fact that it's preceded by a turn-initial delay and a defeatist tone of voice.
It's like, I love those kids with all my heart. And nothing in this world would ever make me do anything to these kids, or my wife.
He says these and those, even though the pictures of his children are right in front of him. This is distancing language, which is a sign of internal disconnection, a disconnection that was evident when Watts agreed to two Chris's. The phrase, with all my heart, overemphasizes the love that Watts can't express naturally and believably. The fact that it's delayed and the fact that Watts keeps a firm gaze on Decoder detract from the reliability of this declaration of love. He's not telling how he feels, he's persuading. This is another red flag, and the red flags keep on coming.
I love these girls. I love these girls so much. And this picture right here, Celeste and Bella, those are my life. I helped make those kids. There's nothing in my life that means more to me than these kids. Nothing. Kids, that's your life. That's your lifeline. That's everything. Like, you make kids, they come first before anything. Kids, spouse, family. That's what it's always been. Nothing you've told me tonight makes sense.
Watts can convey emotions naturally, so in order to compensate for that, he repeats certain words.
I love these girls. I love these girls so much. There's nothing in my life, nothing.
And points to the picture, even though it's been on the table for a long time. The unintended result of this is that he comes across as overly convincing, and people who are overly convincing often hide something or have ulterior motives. The distancing language continues with Watts calling them these girls and those kids, even when pointing to the picture. The phrase,
I helped make those kids,
is unnatural, awkward, and once again suggests that even when he's trying to imitate emotions and act normal, he doesn't know how to do it. With you and your, Watts makes general observations.
Kids, that's your life. That's your lifeline. You make kids, they come first before anything.
He's not talking about how he's feeling, but about how he knows he should be feeling, and that's very different. This points to cognitive empathy, not emotional empathy. When subjects are overly convincing, they unintentionally expose that they're worried about how they'll be perceived, when they should be worried about their missing loved ones. And at this point in time, Watts' family was still just missing. Watts wants the agent's attention to be on him and his desperate attempts to sound like a caring father and husband. This makes his statements and behavior seem like an act, which obviously is another red flag.
And it's like I was when all my friends were coming over to give me some support. I knew that all right, I was happy all my friends just came over to just support. I didn't want to be alone at that point in time. This is the time you don't want to be alone at all.
Agent Lee's momentary lack of attention gets Watts to look at her and start over with the story, suggesting that he's more focused on her reaction to the story than actually telling the story. Lee's reaction confuses him, and he reinitiates the story with all right, as if this is a state of mind he now has to resume and act, something that he doesn't feel, but knows that he has to say. Watts shifts to the distancing you when generalizing his alleged emotion about not wanting to be alone, and at all overemphasizes this alleged emotion. This distancing and overcompensating language is a sign that he isn't able to convey what he feels personally, because he doesn't feel what he claims to feel. The qualification at that point in time is interesting in that regard, because not wanting to be alone was a very recent emotion, since his family has almost just disappeared. However, this qualification indicates that he's already overcome this emotion, which again indicates that there was actually no point in time where he didn't want to be alone. There was no emotion to overcome.
And my friends are supporting me all through this, and I just want to find them. I want them to come home safe, wherever they are. I hope they are safe. And I really hope they can just come home. The FBI agent, Graham, he's been really helpful. I mean, he didn't tell me what leads they have for today, but I'm hoping that it leads to them coming home. Because just being in that house and not being able to tuck them in, it's heart-wrenching. It's earth-shattering right now, because those are my kids. Those are you made those kids, do you have kids or anything? Okay, 3 of them.
Watts is stating the obvious here. It's obvious that a father and husband would want his family to be safe and come back, so the fact that he's saying it shows that he's most concerned with how Lee perceives him. Thus, it unintentionally suggests that what he's saying isn't what he's feeling. The hyperbolic language he uses to express his emotions, heart-wrenching and earth-shattering, doesn't match his unemotional demeanor.
It's heart-wrenching, it's earth-shattering right now, because I really hope they can just come home.
Watts makes that possibility sound far-fetched. Here, his experiential memory, his knowledge about what he's done to his family, results in a defeatist attitude, typical for subjects who know more than they're letting on. Watts continues with unnatural, unreliable statements about his family.
Where are they? I don't know where they're at. Honestly, I do not know where they are at. If I could have my babies back home right now, I would. I want them back. I want everybody back. That is the God's honest truth.
Watts' tone of voice appeals to the agent's pity to get them to stop asking this question. When the agents don't respond accordingly, Watts takes 6 seconds to make an appeal to honesty and restates his denial.
Honestly, I do not know where they are at.
As if the way he says it somehow makes it more believable. Appeals to honesty should be noted in a situation like this. It could indicate that the subject isn't being honest or hasn't been honest up until a certain point. No matter what, it demonstrates a high level of self-awareness, which could be a sign of undisclosed information and guilty knowledge. In conversations, we expect the person we're talking to acknowledge what we're saying. When that acknowledgement is absent, it feels uncomfortable. Here, the agents deliberately withhold acknowledgement, and Watts obviously finds it uncomfortable because he keeps on talking, keeps stating the obvious.
If I could have my babies back home right now, I would. I want them back. That is the God's honest truth.
In a high-pressure situation like this, liars like Watts frequently use mild oaths. They're more likely than truthful people to use expressions like "I swear" on God, and the idiom "God's honest truth." To them, such expressions make them sound sincere and righteous, even though what the expressions really show is that they're more concerned with saying the right things than saying what they mean. And to say that Coda and Lee don't respond the way Watts wants them to is a huge understatement. The next excerpt is cringeworthy, all 55 seconds of it.
That is the God's honest truth.
This pause breaks every conversational rule possible, and this time Watts doesn't take the silence to mean that he should say something. This is a dead end. Watts' talk about God is interesting because Watts has used God, his concept of God, to portray himself as a changed man, which unfortunately has become a go-to narrative for many deceptive people. Some people use it to make money, others to improve their reputation. The common denominator is that their motives are strictly self-serving. In one of his letters to his mother, Watts writes that he's still a dad, still a son no matter what, and that he can now add servant of God to that mix, that God has allegedly shown him peace, love, and forgiveness. Sounds good, right? No, because his prison interview makes it clear that he's using his belief or pretend belief for self-benefit.
There was one church service, the only one I've been able to go to in here, and it said you're not defined by one moment in your life. And I think that's like, people are defining me by one moment in my life. They don't know like what happened before or what can happen later. So I just hope that, hopefully one day people can stop judging everybody.
This is extreme downplaying of his decisions and what his victims had to endure. Watts says this as if other people should be able to relate to doing something wrong, when the truth is that this wasn't just one moment. This was a horrific crime that only few people would be psychopathic enough to even think about doing. Implicitly, he judges other people for defining him by one moment. By inference, then, Watts actually says that it's people who need to learn this lesson. This speaks to his lack of guilt and prominent sense of self-importance. Watts hasn't changed, people rarely do. He's merely trying out a new narrative to see if it'll win people over.
Oh, we missed you.
How was the birthday?
It was really good. I got my face smashed in some cake.
Oh, that's good.
When you write me, you can explain some of the Bible to me, because when I read it, I don't understand it. So
A lot of it I read a few times over before I turned the page, just so I could kind of absorb what it said.
Do you understand it?
Yeah, I understand.
I have a hard time.
Watts had no problem lying in God's name.
That is the God's honest truth.
But wait, that was before his big transformation. Yes, because people change their entire personalities that fast all the time.
We just can't figure out why there's two Chris's. Okay? We talked about that last night.
Yes.
We just can't figure it out. But but you weren't here today lying about something else. So we need to talk about that, okay?
I cheated on her.
I know. And this is very good. Keep
I'm not proud of it.
Watts mentions a quote-unquote lesser sin or an action that he can't be convicted of to avoid admitting the bigger sin.
I'm not proud of it.
The unassertive self-repairs and rising intonation, asking, not stating, point to undisclosed information.
She accused me of it. I denied it. I cheated on her, and I feel horrible for it. Like, she was pregnant, and it was... I don't want to... I didn't hurt her.
His self-repairs and pauses indicate that he's buying time to sound emotional and sincere. However, he doesn't sound sincere. His low-key tone of voice is an appeal to the agent's pity, as if that will get him off the hook.
I cheated on her. I hurt her emotionally. I cheated on her.
His self-repairs and pauses have finally resulted in something that he thinks he can use. He repeats the verb hurt, which presupposes that he did hurt Shanann somehow, even though he just said that he didn't hurt her. This points to guilty knowledge, undisclosed information.
And I feel absolutely horrible about this, but
Watts' repetition and insertions of overly convincing linguistic elements like absolutely suggest rehearsal. He's rehearsing how to answer convincingly.
that's what I've been holding.
When will deceptive subjects admit to have been holding something back? When they know they've done bigger things than the thing they're admitting to. Watts claimed to be honest, but now, all of a sudden, he's willing to admit that he's been holding something back.
When I didn't go to the Rocky game, I was with her.
Okay.
I went to dinner with her.
Okay.
He'll admit to anything but the thing that he can be convicted of, his crime. Thanks for tuning in.